the veteran who built a shelter for others. In a small town nestled between rolling hills and tangled woods, there lived a man whose story had faded into the background, much like the worn medals tucked away in an old shoebox under his bed. His name was Leonard Hayes. Most people called him Lenny, a name that carried the warmth of familiarity but seldom the weight of his past. Lenny had once worn the uniform of his country, his youth spent in faraway lands, carrying both pride and fear in equal measure. His service had left him with memories that would sometimes jolt him awake at night, and scars, some visible, some hidden deep beneath the surface. After returning home, he found the world a little colder, quieter, and much harder to navigate. The war had ended, but another had begun inside him. For years, Lenny drifted. He worked odd jobs, kept to himself, and tried to find solace in the routines of ordinary life. The town knew him as the quiet man who lived in the small, peeling house at the edge of Maple Street. He rarely attended community events, and although he'd nod politely at the grocer or the postman, few people could say they really knew him. But, beneath that quiet exterior, a storm raged on. Lenny was not alone in his struggle. As the years passed, more veterans returned home, some younger, some older, all carrying burdens of their own. Lenny recognized the haunted look in their eyes, the way they'd startle at sudden noises, or the way they avoided the bustle of crowds. It was a language of pain and resilience, unspoken but unmistakable. One cold November evening, as he walked home from the market, Lenny noticed a figure huddled beneath the awning of the old bakery. The man was shivering, his jacket far too thin for the biting wind, his eyes hollow and tired. Lenny paused, recognizing something familiar, a kind of quiet desperation he'd seen in the mirror too many times. Without thinking, Lenny approached. "You all right?" he asked, his voice gruff but gentle. The man looked up, startled. He mumbled something about being fine, about just needing a place to rest for the night. Lenny hesitated, then offered, "It's not much, but my place is warm. You're welcome to stay." That night, as they sat across from each other at Lenny's kitchen table, sharing a bowl of soup, the stranger, who introduced himself as Carl, began to talk. He spoke of his time overseas, of the friends he'd lost, and how hard it was to find his footing back home. Lenny listened, and in Carl's story, he heard echoes of his own. After Carl left the next morning, Lenny found himself thinking about all the others, those who wandered the streets, invisible and forgotten. He wondered how many of them fought the same battles he did, how many needed nothing more than a warm meal and someone to listen. The thought would not let him go. Days turned into weeks, and soon, news spread that Lenny Hayes had started inviting veterans into his home. At first, it was just one or two, old friends, acquaintances, or strangers he found sleeping in the park. He offered them food, a hot shower, and a warm bed. Word traveled, and before long, Lenny's small house overflowed with people in need. Realizing he could not do it alone, Lenny reached out to the community. He spoke at the local church, his voice trembling as he shared his story. He talked about the invisible wounds of war, the loneliness, and the importance of reaching out. Some listened with guarded interest, others with open hearts. Slowly, volunteers began to trickle in. Donations followed, blankets, canned food, old furniture. But Lenny's house was too small. He dreamed of something bigger, a shelter, a place where veterans could find not just a bed, but compassion, understanding, and a sense of belonging. The idea seemed impossible at first. He had little money, no formal training, and the weight of his own struggles to bear. Yet, determination can be a powerful thing. Lenny set to work, rallying volunteers, organizing fundraisers, and speaking wherever he could. He knocked on doors, wrote letters to local businesses, and never turned away those who came seeking help. The project was slow, often frustrating. There were setbacks, permits delayed, donations promised and never received, moments when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. But each night, as he looked around at the people gathered in his living room, sharing stories, laughter, and sometimes tears, he remembered why he had started. Finally, after months of effort, Lenny's dream became reality. With the help of the community, he converted an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town into a shelter. The transformation was remarkable. Once a cold, empty space, it now buzzed with life. Beds lined up neatly, a kitchen filled with the aroma of home-cooked meals, walls adorned with photographs and artwork created by the residents themselves. The shelter became more than just a place to sleep. It was a haven, a place where veterans could find counseling, job training, and most importantly, acceptance. Lenny implemented programs to help residents reconnect with their families, manage trauma, and rebuild their lives. He invited speakers, organized support groups, and fostered an environment of mutual respect and encouragement. Over time, the shelter's impact rippled outward. Residents who had once been homeless found jobs, reconnected with loved ones, and even moved into homes of their own. Some returned to volunteer, eager to give back to the place that had given them hope. The town, once indifferent, now took pride in the shelter, recognizing it as a symbol of compassion and resilience. Lenny never sought recognition. He shied away from interviews and declined awards, insisting the real heroes were those who found the courage to keep going, day after day. But his story became a quiet legend, the veteran who built a shelter for others, not out of duty, but out of empathy and love. As the years went by, Lenny grew older. His hair turned silver, his steps slowed, but his spirit remained unbroken. The shelter continued to thrive, expanding its services and reaching more people in need. Younger veterans who had once been residents stepped into leadership roles, carrying forward the legacy Lenny had begun. And through it all, Lenny remained at the heart of it, a steady presence, always ready with a kind word, a listening ear, or a bowl of soup. To him, the shelter was not just a building, but a testament to what could be achieved when one person refused to let suffering go unnoticed. The lesson Lenny left behind was simple, yet profound. In a world often divided by indifference and fear, one act of kindness can ignite a chain reaction, transforming not just individual lives, but entire communities. True strength lies not in the absence of struggle, but in the willingness to reach out, to listen, and to lift others up when they have fallen. Lenny's story reminds us that everyone carries burdens, some visible, some hidden. We may never know the battles others are fighting, but we can choose to meet them with compassion. In doing so, we discover that healing is not a solitary journey, but one best traveled together. And so, in that small town, the shelter continues to stand, a beacon of hope, built not from bricks and mortar alone, but from the courage, kindness, and unwavering humanity of one veteran who chose to make a difference.